Kathy Littlejohn, and I am a non-academic Cherokee historian and a Cherokee storyteller. I've been telling stories for 40 years, but I've only been doing Cherokee history for about 6 years. And the more that I learn, the more I realize that I don't know anything. And there's so much more to learn. So that's why I enjoy coming out and doing presentations. And thanks to Raven, we are live, and she's going to start us off with what I call the Kilpatricks presentation. And I'm hoping that some of you know some of their family, because I'd like to learn a little bit more about what happened. But Anna Griggs, she's born in Stillwell, Oklahoma in 1917. And what I could find about her, she was Cherokee Nation, full blood, and a direct descendant of Sequoyah. She met her husband, Jack, when they were in elementary school in Stillwell. He was born in 1915. Now, the description of Jack is mixed blood. That's not how I would have said, but that's the description about his life. And he taught at Southern Methodist University School of Music in Dallas, Texas. And we'll learn a little bit more about their families as we go on. But the impact that they had on preserving Cherokee history is extraordinary. Okay, David. So this is Anna's mother. Her name was Mary Mankiller, and she married a Briggs. I'm really not sure how to say that. And her father was Henry Briggs, and she had a sister by the name of Lucy, and she married a Sinclair. I couldn't find a photo of Henry, but that's his death certificate there. So if anyone's interested, they can get more details, such as when he was born. That's why I like being a non-academic. I spend a lot of time on dates. Okay, great. So I don't know what happened to Anna's father, Henry, but Mary married again, and her second husband, his name is Jack Nofire. And that's a picture of Jack there in the hat. And Anna and Lucy then had half brothers and sisters. So I found a picture of Eli Nofire, and he's in the white shirt, and a picture of Sam Nofire, the one in the cap. But the sisters were Maggie Nofire Hill and Louise Nofire Eichkammer. I think I'm saying that wrong. Okay, Raven. Now, when Lucy passed away in New York, because that's where her husband was from, the obituary lists, of course, her children and her grandchildren. But it goes on to say, and this is where I'm thinking that some of you all might know some of the nieces and the nephews, because it's Irvina Ishcomer Marshall Stillwell, Susan Ishcomer Fields and her husband Jim of Stillwell, Linda Dougherty and her husband, and it didn't say where they were living, Sandra Karen Hill Chapman and Tommy Fema Nofire John and her husband Stanley, and Katie Lean Nofire of Tahlequah, Carlene Nofire Morris and husband in Lawrence, Kansas, Kathleen Nofire of Florida, Carmela Nofire of Tahlequah. And the nephews were Norman Nofire of Sapuka, Ronald Nofire and his wife Vicky of Broken Arrow, Richard Nofire of Guthrie, Jack Nofire of Wichita, Kansas, Sherman Nofire of Keys, Jack Kilpatrick Jr. of Dallas, Anna Alan Kilpatrick of California, Clifford Kilpatrick and wife of Oklahoma City, and Russell No Fire of Squilco. Anybody know any of those names? The only No Fire that I have ever met in my life is Zebediah No Fire, who is a young man. So I don't know.
You got no fault, you still well.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's the same family. And I don't know if these would be like the nieces and nephews, and then the ones that are living today are the great nieces and nephews, or the great nieces and nephews. I'm not sure. I sent a message to Zebediah, but he hasn't answered, and I listed all of these people, and I said, are you related to any of these? Are they familiar in any way? Okay, all right, Raymond. So back to Jack's family. See, Anna had all kinds of family members tied to her, but Jack had a mother by the name of Farrell Cloud Kilpatrick. The father was Oscar Henry Kilpatrick. That's it. No siblings, no aunts. Very, very little. Okay. All right, Raven. So this is a picture of Jack and a picture of Anna. And I just love her smile. And you're welcome to come up and take a look, but these notebooks and what he's pointing to, or I think pointing to, all in silver. And then these arrows lying across the desk. Not quite sure what that has to do with the language, but that's a pretty well used picture of the two of them. She earned a bachelor's of science degree from Southern Methodist University, and she taught at public schools in Dallas. He was a professor of music composition and theory at the Southern Methodist University School of Music in Dallas, Texas. So I think what they did in the summertime was their translation. Okay, good. So the work that they did together has been published into books, Walking Your Soul, Friends of Thunder, Run to the Nightland, and Magic of the Oklahoma Cherokee, 1966. All of the other works that they are credited for doing is their translation work, the Love Incantations of the Oklahoma Cherokee, The Shadow of Sequoia, Sequoia of Earth and Intellect, the Juanita manuscript, the Troubled Land Contributions to the Cherokee Phoenix, the Book of Haggai, that they translated, the Eastern Cherokee Folk Tales reconstructed from the field notes of Franz Albright, and Minnesota Letters. I have the reference here if anybody wants to take a picture of those and look it up. But this is one of the books that they have done. And the way that it reads to me is that they literally went to house. They have the names of the people that they interviewed and the stories that they collected. So they collected it or used a tape recording. It was in Cherokee, and they translated it into English. What I'm interested in as a storyteller is the similarity, and this is where I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. Okay, so before removal, everyone had these stories. They might have told them a little different if they happen to be in modern day Tennessee versus modern day Georgia. But then the removal happened, and the Kilpatricks started collecting these stories. So the ones that they collected survived the Trail of Tears. And they are similar, but they're different than the ones that Eastern Band still has. And it's hard not to think us and them. So I get caught up in thinking, okay, so which is the oldest? Which is the one that's the most like the original? The ones that stayed in the East or the ones that came to the West? And there is no them and we, it's all us. But I don't know how you can determine that. And it makes my brain hurt to think about that. I don't know. But there are some that I have never heard or never seen in 40 years of storytelling. And there are some that are just like the ones that I know, and some that are like that, but with some changes. So I don't know. I'm just grateful that we have what we have after everything that's happened. Okay, Raymond. I got this from the Smithsonian Anthropology and Institution, and you can just type that in and you can download it and copy it. I don't know enough about it to tell you who they talked to, how they collected this. I just know that that is one of the books that they're contributing to. And then, of course, there's Springs of Thunder that I'm passing around. Okay, right there. The one that I really enjoy, as well as Springs of Thunder, is this one that's called the Chronicles of Wolftown. And from 1850 to 1862, Wolftown is the community that Leroy and I live in Cherokee. And our community clubs are very, very strong in each community. Most communities have what they call free labor, and it's a group of people that get together if a grave needs to be dug, or someone needs help with something else. And it used to be that they would go and help someone cut their fodder for their cattle for the winter. Now, when Leroy was a teenager, the older men chose him as their messenger, because this was way before cell phones or dial phones or any kind of phones. And he would go house to house. They would send a message to him and say, we're going to be cutting wood for so-and-so on this day at this time. He would have to go house to house. And he went on one side of the road, gravel road, and tell everybody, and then he would cross over and go back up until them. While another young man went to the houses above him. So they have been a part of our lives since we were born. So I was really excited to find that the Wolftown Community Club was very active in 1850, and very probably before that, and before the removal. And a clerk that was an elected clerk by the name of Enole, or Black Fox, he recorded every meeting that they had. And the community club, they loaned money to people in the community. And so a lot of his records are things like loan so-and-so $2 to buy a hoe head. And then very carefully, it was like a month later, so-and-so paid 25 cents on their loan. And then it gets into all of these things about if they loan money they're supposed to pay interest up front. And he calculated how much interest that would be, as well as issues in the community that people had gone to them about. It's all documented in the Chronicles. So, one was a woman had her clothes stolen and went to the community club, and there was a description of her 3 dresses that she owned, what color they were, what they looked like, and who she thought stole the dresses, and the value of them. And, they documented everything. And then if someone passed away in the community and had no family, the community club officers would be in charge of auctioning off their belongings. So that's all carefully documented as well. And I think it gives a glimpse of daily life. It talks about people coming from the outside and stealing lumber and what they did about it. So it gives a lot of history as well as what's happening in the community club. And I tease our community club officers and say, it's a tradition that you all loan money. So when can I put in for a loan? And they just, they're not going to do that. But it was all in Cherokee. And the Kilpatricks got that document and they translated everything. And then they put in some notes about what they thought was happening, which is really interesting. So we have that thanks to Dan. And okay. Now this turned out terrible on the slide, but as they went house to house here in Oklahoma, some of the papers that they collected were all in syllabary, and they would translate those. They're not in the Wolfhound Chronicles, but they're in their papers. There was one that was really interesting from a man, last name Wolf, and he sold some baskets, and so he would put down how much that he sold the baskets for. They were like $4. So they translated those things too, but I don't know why they didn't put it. Okay, right. So their collection, there are like 23 boxes of documents, and Yale has them, and they have a Carnegie Rare Book and Manuscript Library, and that's when you can go online and you should be able to see certain things. They have a list of all of the Kilpatrick's work. So Yale bought the collection from Alan Kilpatrick and Rick Grove Books. So I did find that Rick Grove Books is a bookstore that dealt in rare books. Alan, I could not find if he was their son until I found Lucy, his aunt, Lucy Sinclair's obituary. And he's listed with 2 other sons, Jack Jr. and Cleveland. And so Alan obviously owned or worked at Rick Grove Books, and he sold all of his parents' work to Yale University. I don't know if they were for sale at the bookstore or why he wanted to sell them. I don't know. Okay, very good. But amazingly enough, that fell off my chair. Another portion of their collection is at Western Carolina University in Cullowhee, North Carolina. which is like 30 minutes from my house. And I had no clue. And the Chronicles of Wolftown is listed as being there. So I don't know if they actually translated two manuscripts, and one is at Western, or if that's a copy of the one that is at the Smithsonian, or vice versa. And I kept thinking, what? How did they even know about Western Carolina from the Methodist University in Texas or Stillwell, Oklahoma? How did they know someone who went to the college? It's a university now, but it was a college back then, a teaching college, as a matter of fact. And so I kept digging and digging a little bit. Okay, Rick. Remember Jack Kilpatrick was a professor of composition and music? All right. He composed the musical score for the outdoor pageant Unto These Hills. Has anyone ever seen Unto These Hills? Phyllis has, you have. Okay, so it's an outdoor drama that's in its 76th season. So it used to be there was a lady with an organ down at the stage in 1955, 54 is when the first opened. And she would play Jack Kilpatrick's music. So someone heard about him, or he heard about them, and they hired him to compose the music. So all of the music that was there at the drama, we call it the drama, is original Kilpatrick's music. Now, they don't use that music anymore, but they didn't even know about the Kilpatricks. And he was on the board of trustees for a number of years. So I could not find any record that they moved to Cherokee, but they could have come and stayed for this summer while their schools were closed down for the summer, is what I'm thinking, but I don't know. And he didn't have to live there to be on, at the time, it was 21 people were on the board of trustees. I would hate to have gone to some of their meetings. It would have taken a long time for everybody to have their say-so. Now it's dropped down and it's a board of directors, and I think there's like 7 or 6 people on it. But a lot of people listened to the music that goes along with each scene from the drama. And that's one of the more famous scenes of the Eagle Dance. Okay, ready? So I didn't realize what a big deal they are. And I did not realize what a big deal he was in the music world. So after he passed away, there is, and I didn't know this, the Institute of Outdoor Theater, which collects music composed for outdoor theater in the world. And it's in North Carolina. Look at it. They played a symphony at a memorial service for Dr. Jack Kilpatrick. And that is at their institute. And when I first discovered that, I was able to click on their school or their webpage and type in his name, and I could hear it. So I heard part of that symphony. Okay, Reagan. But this was even more amazing. This woman is Christina Giacomini, and in her dissertation, this is what she said. Jack Frederick Kilpatrick was one of the first professional classic composers whose work was based on his intimate knowledge of Native American culture. His compositional style was influenced by his experience growing up in Stillwell, Oklahoma, and his culture. So he wrote over 250 pieces of music. And I don't know what this is. Somebody can look that up. It included 188 officially completed opus numbers. His collection includes songs that have both English and Cherokee text, librettos that describe Cherokee cultural practices, and these pieces connect listeners to Cherokee life as told in Cherokee history, performance traditions, language, and medicine. When we found 31 boxes of Jack Kilpatrick's personal manuscript collections and handwritten notes in the attic of Catlett Music Center at the University of Oklahoma. How it got there, I don't know. In 2018, our discovery opened a window into the meditative, intercultural, and musical experience is of Jack and the Oklahoma Cherokee during the mid-20th century. And when I read that, I thought, holy cow, 31 boxes of original music. And a lot of it comes from he and Anna going door to door around places in Oklahoma and talking to Cherokee people. So, my son, I'm telling my son about all this, and he got this book, Friends of Thunder, and he started looking at some of the stories, which I just read over. I didn't pay any attention because I don't read music. But in a lot of the stories, there's music. Jack wrote this music. There is an app or a way that you can get on the internet and put these music notes in, and you can hear his music that goes along with this story. This one is about little people. And he wrote, and I guess Anna put the Cherokee words to it. And so it's a song that a little person sang. And I thought, what? And I have told, not this story, but I have told the one about how the possum loses his tail for many, many years. And when I saw that there was a song written, now I can't find it, when Cricket, in the story, Cricket sings a song while he's pulling out Possum's tail just before he cuts it off. And that song is in here, just a little short little snippet of music. But to Jack, that's what the Cricket sang. I thought, what? Holy cow, that's just amazing to me. And it's frustrating that we have Cherokee students that are in music departments in universities throughout this country, and they don't know anything about Jack Kilpatrick or Anna and their work. And that's just a shame to me. I don't know if I would ever try to listen to 30 boxes, 250 pieces, 31 boxes of his music, but hearing that in a story just really meant a lot to me. And it's a little frustrating that growing up, I never heard anything about the Kilpatricks. And if you all haven't, and you live in Oklahoma, then that's doubly frustrating. Anyway, so they made a lot of contributions in a lot of different ways. Great, I think that might be all. Let's check and see. Yep, stop. So were you able to find the other one? Cannot get it on.
Won't share.
You want to know how to look at it? Sure. Oh. Well, Raven can't get my other one on there, but that's okay. We can, maybe there's another one that will show, I'm not sure.
Last time again?
But when I saved it, it popped up and said, Windows C. And I thought, that's weird, but usually it says D or E. So she checked what I thought I saved and it's not popping up at all. It looks like a weird flash drive.
Alright.
So maybe I got it at the yard sale. I don't know. Oh, 10 cents, okay, I'll get it. Anyway, while we're waiting on Malachi and Raven to work their magic, I'll go ahead and tell you that story. You know what a possum looks like, right? And its tail is kind of ugly, I think, and I wouldn't call it beautiful. But at one time, possum had the most beautiful tail. Oh, he was so proud of it. It was big and had all beautiful colors in it, and he was so proud of his tail. You would go over to Possum and say, Possum, can you help me bring some water? And he would say, oh, no, I have to wash my tail. And I'd say, what? So they'd go and they'd say, Possum, can you please help me carry some wood? And he would put that old tail in their face and say, can't you see that my tail is drying and I have to fluff it? Fluff it. And everyone did not appreciate that tail, especially the ones that had beautiful tails that nobody paid any attention to, like the fox. Beautiful, but did not show or talk about it because Possum would show his tail.
Oh, this isn't a flash drive.
Well, they were getting really tired of Possum not helping, being so conceited about his tail. But this is what they did. They knew that Possum had always wanted to be the lead dancer, but they never would let him because he would call all of the attention to his tail. They probably couldn't even get out on the grounds because his tail was so big, and they never would let him. So they went over and they said, Possum, you're going to be the lead dancer tomorrow. Woo! He said, oh, yay! Finally! And he rushed over to the cricket. And that was the animal's barber. He was in on it too. He said, I get to be lead dancer tomorrow. I need you to wash my tail and make it just beautiful. As if you could make it even more beautiful than what it is. But I want you to try. So Cricket starts humming a little song. And he starts combing out that tail. And Possum went to sleep. Well, while Possum was asleep, Cricket cut off every hair on that tail. And he found an old piece of leather and he tied it up and hid it. Possum woke up and he looked at his tail and said, what have you done? He said, oh, Possum, it's beautiful. It's the most beautiful tail design ever. But you can't take off the leather until you're dancing. You gotta promise me, you won't mess it up. Possum said, I will, I don't want to mess it up. So the next morning, there he was, yelling, get behind me and my tail. Me and my tail are lead dancer today. don't get close to my tail. And he was yelling at everyone, and they lined up. Drum started, and he stepped out and danced and shook his tail. And then he remembered he had to take off the leather. So he reached back and pulled it off. Everybody shouted and pointed at his tail. Woo! I just know it's good. And he danced harder. Well, then he thought, why are they laughing and pointing at my tail? And he looked back, and when he saw that his tail design was not there, and his tail was naked and bony, he was so embarrassed. He rolled over and played like he was dead. And even today, that's what Apostle will do when he's so embarrassed and shocked. And that's how the Apostle lost his tail. What do you think,
Great story.
Oh, thank you.
This is an adapter for your phone, not a flash. You have another flash.
That's why it was 10 cents. No, I do not have another flash
All
drive.
right.
That's the only one that I
Is this
bought.
your bag?
Yes.
Yeah, but this,
Okay,
so you don't use it.
right. Like,
All
I
right.
don't know what to do with it. So. I would be very interested in that.
That's how you sent it. Like you sent it to yourself. Or you able to download it or anything? Of course.
Tell me about the magic tail.
The magic what?
Hey.
Lake, okay. All right.
You have a C2C charger?
There is a lake, and we call the mountain Kuboki, Mulberry Place. And there are a lot of stories about that place. And we know that the Council of Bears meet there, and they have their dances, and they hibernate there in the winter.
Take that.
There-
That's what happened.
It's such a special place. You might have heard it referred to as Cleveland's Dome. And it's the highest mountain in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So there was lots of stories about this place. And a young man went out into the woods, and he thought, I'm going to try to find out where the bears go. How do they get in the mountain? There must be an opening. I don't know if it's a cave. And he just wandered really, really far. He got really tired, and he lay down and he fell asleep. When he woke up, the captain of all the bears were at his feet. And he was so scared he couldn't move. And he was so shocked when the bear started talking to him and he could understand. He said, I want you to go with me. And the young man thought, I'm not going anywhere with you. You're going to eat me. And the bear said, don't be afraid. Go with me. I want to show you something. It's really important. And the young man thought, this must be a dream. But okay, so he gets up, he gets on the back of the bear, and the bear went so fast that all he could do was hang on and keep his eyes closed against the rushing wind. And finally, the bear stopped, and the young man opened his eyes, and he saw such a beautiful lake. He forgot all about being scared, and he slid off, and he couldn't get over it. The water was so blue and clear, it was almost purple. And then he saw something amazing. He saw that there were some animals lined up on one side, and they looked like they were hurt. And they would get in that water and they would swim across. When they got out, they were fine. And he watched and watched, and it happened over and over. Then he got excited. And he said, will you please take me back because I have to go and tell my family. I have to tell everyone in the settlement because my grandmother, her bones hurt so bad and she can't do things like she used to. And I know people that are sick, they could come here and they could get well if they could just get in this water. And the bear said, that's what I want you to do. I want you to go back and I want you to tell people about this place. But tell them that they can't use it until they stop fighting. The day that humans stop fighting, we will bring you and we will show you this healing lake so that humans can use it too. I think there's still a way. Is there not good fighting? Notice that they are not looking at me. They're not asking me anything. No. Oh. I sure feel like that. Okay, feel free to get up, walk around. And by all means, don't feel like you just have to stay here. I can't help them, I don't know what they're doing, so we'll
Basically, just like you just talked about.
Sure. And I can do
Like if you use guns.
that. Okay, all right, well,
Is she live, Ricky?
Is it live?
Are we, is she live right now? Get you back up, not live. We'll have some people calling in.
I can't hear nothing. No, she's talking, what did she say?
oh, so they missed the stories. Okay, I wanted to talk about Cherokee gold. And I have no notes, so I'm not even gonna try to tell you what year that it was. I do know that gold was discovered on Cherokee territory in northern Georgia in about 1830, that's a guess. I have to look it up. And the story is that there was so much gold, and one man from town had seen the Cherokee family using it as a doorstop. It was a nugget that big. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the way it says. There was a little town by the name of Lick Lock, for a salt lick that had been there for centuries, I guess. And it was a tiny little town. And literally, when gold was discovered, overnight, there was 150,000 people rushed into that area to stake a gold claim, all on Cherokee territory. So there was a lot of conflict. And the state of Georgia decided to solve the conflict that they would do a couple of things. They would take any law that the Cherokees had, including the agreements and the treaties, and declare them null and void. Just throw them out the window. And the second thing that they decided to do was start the Georgia Guard. Now, a lot of people think the Guard was like the National Guard today, that they're not active service men and women, but they have lots of training and they're there in case there's an emergency at home. There might be some guards like that, but the Georgia Guard was not like that. There was about 60 volunteers. They had no training, and they did some really ugly things. The stories of what they did and recorded in a lot of soldiers' journal on the removal, they were some really rough characters. We'll leave it at that. I can tell you one little story. There was a Cherokee family, and during the removal, the guard would help the soldiers round up families and put them in the stockades or to the forts. And this family had found a bear cub when it was tiny, just tiny, and they helped it, and it really became like a pet. So it was about half grown. And I don't know how they saved up the money, but they bought like a short metal chain and a metal stop that goes down in the ground so that they could chain up the bear and not have it wander away because they were afraid it couldn't feed itself. So they had this bear for years. And so when the guards came, they were trying to talk to the guards and say, what about the bears? We can't just leave the bear in a starve or something will kill it. And they would stop and they would try to point to the bear and, and they were real upset. They didn't want to leave it like that. So they'd go on a little further and they would stop and they would try to point to the bear and show how upset they were. And so finally, the guards turned around and shot the bear. So we know that because when they got to Fort Cass in Charleston, Tennessee, and they had Cherokee families come and submit their claims because there was an agreement that they would be compensated for the things that they had to leave behind. So much for a peach tree, so much for a home, so much for a quilt. And this family submitted a claim for a length of chain and a stop. That was the Georgia Guard. So they were trying to help the gold miners and all of the ones that poured into Cherokee territory. There was people that came to set up businesses. There were more taverns set up in Wigwam. It was really rough. And because the confrontations and the conflict kept happening, when the Cherokees were appealing that the treaties be upheld and the surveys be looked at, come here, this is our land. It quickly became real violent. And when that did happen, then the people who wanted to come in, thousands, they started pushing at the governor to go ahead and do a land recording. They had to, so they had a survey, came into Cherokee territory, and really quick, divided, I can't remember how many acres, into small sections. That was for the land. And then they had another lottery for gold claims. So they had people put in their names for both lotteries, and they made a big barrel. In Dahlonega, Georgia, you can see a replica of that. You can see sketches. It looks like they had it like in a, kind of like in a courthouse. Hundreds of people were there to see if their name was drawn. And they spun that big barrel and they pulled out, and I can't remember without my notes, but it was something like 15,000 people put in for 600 votes. It was crazy. So with the backing of Georgia, the guard and the governor, then they literally ran the northern Georgia Cherokees. So they migrated north and west, went into South Carolina and North Carolina, Alabama. But then the town decided that to honor the Cherokees, that they would change it from Litwater to Dahlonega. That's the Cherokee word for gold or yellow. Black. That really there was so much gold mined and collected that the U.S. government had a mint in Pennsylvania. So you had two choices. You mined so many ounces of gold. You could go to Pennsylvania and you could wait while they did a process that would get pure gold and get out the other metals that were mixed in with it. That's called something. But you would have to get to Pennsylvania and get back. They could get more money doing it that way, or they could go to a bank or a business in Dahlonega, and they could get less because they were buying the unfiltered gold, so they would get less. There were so many people that went to Pennsylvania, and there was so much gold found that they built 2 more mints, one in Georgia and one right over the line, so that it was way easier for the miners to get their payment for their gold. They started minting coins at Dahlonega, and at the Gold Museum there today, they have a glass case that has a guard in there the whole time that the building is open. And so Leroy and I went in there, and I'm looking at the gold coins, and they were really tiny, really tiny. And there's a really good exhibit about how many coins they minted and the images that they used and what the worth would be. And again, to honor the Cherokees, they developed a princess coin. And they only made so many of the princess coins, so today that coin is more valuable than the others. They said that that exhibit was probably worth about $3 million. And they have a big sign that they change all the time on how much gold is worth per ounce today. I mean, they change it because it changes. It's just going up. And what did he say to you? You went in and I can't remember, but he was like back away from the case, sir, or something. And I don't think he realized that that was the real gold, and they were the coins from that time period. It was something like that. They were pretty picky about how close you could get to that taste. Oh, okay, now we're on the red part. So, to wrap up the gold, they struck gold in California and Colorado. And there was not a lot, but there were several companies, I call them, that came here to Tahlequah and recruited Cherokee men that would go to Colorado and California because they had experience with gold mining in Dahlonega, Georgia. And at the John Ross Cemetery, John Ross's daughter, Jane, married a young man by the name of Return Jonathan IV. And evidently, he left and he died in Utah. I don't know if he was going to California or coming back, but he died and was buried out there. And someone in her family, if you ever get a chance, it's not his tombstone, but it talks about kind of like what a scoundrel he was for leaving Jane to raise all these children, and they list all the children. And then she, when she was convinced he was dead, she married her cousin Andrew Ross. Anyway, if you ever have a chance and you're in the Ross cemetery, look that up.
Kevin, when they found all that gold in that little town, was there any, did they remove all of the Cherokees, those no Cherokees at all? That's horrible.
And in all of northern Georgia, because that was the home territory. That's the best of the trades.
Is that, place where they found all that gold, did it become like a ghost town later on?
Yes, yes.
I've been there, I know exactly what you call it. You did some brain.
Oh, good. Now it's a real touristy town, and they have that gold museum there. Nice. Yes, well, little traces of it. And they say that they're in their second gold strike, because of the tourists that come and they want to pan for gold. So we stopped at this one place and we were pretty shocked at how much it cost. It was like $75 each. And we would get, a little bit of dirt and we would go wash it off. Not get much gold, but they would get $150.
So then the turkey just holds it out on everything that land and the gold.
Yes.
They didn't get paid, they got ran off.
And even with treaties and even with lawsuits, even with hiring a lawyer, the governor and getting the Georgia Guard up, a lot of them just wanted to be. So it's really bad.
They said they could walk and kick.
Yeah.
Kick the gold piece.
It was bigger than the California Gold Rush.
Why do you think it became a gold? I know Cherokee are very superstitious and stuff, but that's
The gold played out. I think a lot of them, that gold fever, I think they heard then, because the California Gold Rush and the Colorado Gold Rush happened after the Georgia Gold Rush. So I think they went out there to try their luck, I guess, out there. Then I heard that they had another one in Nebraska. So and there were no families left in the block. It was miners, saloon keepers, other folks that had come to just give as much as they could and then leave. Even the men's were not there. Unless there was one in Monica and one in, I'll say that for next time. I'll look that up. With my notes. So this weekend, they are having Cherokee Days at a place called Red Clay, Tennessee. And I know that Janelle Adair was going to take her family and take part of that. And I thought, I'll talk about Red Clay because the history of Red Clay it's really unique. But it has a lot to do with Georgia in that time period. This is the entrance to the park. This lady wrote an article about Red Clay and the Cherokee presence there. And I just happened to find that and read her article and put her in. So ready, we can move on. This is a map of the park now. It's about 200 and something acres, and it's really hard to read. But it has an amphitheater, and it's got the Turtle Lane, Council Spring, a homestead, a visitor center, and what they call the council house. And that's where the council house is probably the most famous structure and happening at Reagan. Okay, Reagan. So the Capitol was in New Echota, Georgia. And by 1832, the state of Georgia had stripped the Cherokees of all of their sovereignty, and they banned all political activity in Georgia, and then they and then they had that gold rush. So they literally passed a law that said that if a small group of Cherokees had a meeting about anything, it could have been about anything, growing corn, that would be illegal and they could be put in jail. So they started sending out the guard and people got put in jail. So they knew if they had a national council with people coming from all over, that they would all be arrested and put in jail and made it worse. So they moved the capital to Red Clay, Tennessee. First, they went to Chattooga, Alabama, but the grounds were too small. So they went to Red Clay. And Red Clay was the site of 11 general councils from 1832 to 1838. And they would have about 5,000 Cherokees that came and they would camp out on the grounds. The spring delivers 400,000 gallons of 52-degree water every day. So there was plenty of water for anyone who is there for the council. Now the park personnel, it is a Tennessee State Park now, and it says that Red Clay was the start of the Trail of Tears, as the council was held at Red Clay as soon as the Cherokees heard about the passing of the Indian Removal Act in 1835. I don't know, how would you define the start of the removal? Of course, the act passed by Congress and enforced by President Andrew Jackson, or was it when the soldiers actually came? I don't know. That's like, what does it say? Oranges and apples? I mean, but that's what the park person says. Okay, all right, good. So this is the Blue Spring, and it's small, but there's one section that's just blue, and I'll show you a better picture of that. And you can see the water is just constantly coming up, just a steady little fountain. It doesn't get above this water, but you can see it constantly coming. And they have built a bridge, and then this goes under the bridge and goes all the way out to Tennessee. And it's about that deep. It's amazing. But the people that have been in the Blue Springs say that they can't touch the bottom. So it's not very big this way, but it's really deep that way. Okay. So there was a lot of documents that are still in existence, and copies of them that originated from Red Clay. Cherokee Phoenix printed all of the council resolutions, memorials, which are really like petitions and letters that were written about different issues, but particularly about the removal. And then they decided and approved so many people would go to Washington and try to meet with the congressman and the president and get that act overturned. So then, when they came back to Red Clay, they had to give a report to everyone, and the Cherokee Phoenix wrote down what the result was, and then they would publish it in the Cherokee Phoenix. John Ross, there's a lot of correspondence, and a lot of his letters that he wrote have a heading of, Red Clay Council grounds and then the head. And then, of course, Congress wrote documents and letters and appeals back to the Cherokees, and that was read at Red Clay and then published in the Cherokee Phoenix. But this one was from a young woman by the name of Jane Bushyhead, and she wrote a friend. So she was there at council, and she could read and write in the Cherokee, and she wrote from the Red Clay Cherokee Nation, March 1838. And she said, "We Cherokees are to be driven to the west by the cruel hand of oppression. It is thus all our rights are invaded." So there was a lot of documents that came about Red Clay and from Red Clay and to Red Clay. And they're stored in lots of different places. The Smithsonian, different museums. There's a lot in Tulsa in the Gilcrease Museum. But okay. This is the one letter that Principal Chief John Ross wrote, and then this is in typed. And this is the handwritten part of this, and it's a protest petition that was sent to Congress. And the very first of it says that Red Clay Council. Okay. Now, John Meeks Stanton. What an interesting fella he was. And how was he connected to Red Clay? As far as I know, he never went to Red Clay, but it's very important. So he was a self-taught painter, and he went all over the United States. He would go to survey parties, and he painted portraits and paintings of everyday life, Comanche, Apache, the Cherokee in Oklahoma. So he had 150 to 200 paintings at the Smithsonian, and he was attempting to get Congress to buy them. And a fire broke out and destroyed all of the five. He also had paintings at the P.T. Barnum Museum, the same Barnum and Bailey Circus. And there was a fire and it destroyed all of his work that was at that museum. And then the year he died, his studio caught on fire and it destroyed all of the works that he had there. Poor guy. But, okay, Raymond. These are the ones that are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the Philippines. And he also wrote who they were. So this is John Ross's son. He's holding a rabbit. He has a finger woven belt, and it looks to me like it's got beads in it. And then he's got a bow and arrows. And this is his daughter, Elizabeth Ross, and she's reading from a book, and I think she has a pen or a pencil in her hand. Okay. This is his son, who became a principal chief of Cherokee Nation in the West. Lewis. And this is his nephew. I can't remember his first name. So, okay. Remember I said they were 5. And I just call her the mystery lady because John Mick Stanley wrote everybody's name and the relationship to Chief John Ross, except for her. Now, his first wife died during the removal. Wait. He remarried, and he married Mary Bryan Staker Ross. But that's not her. This is listed, according to John Mick Stanley, is Eleanora C. Ross. And no mention of how she's related or connected to John Ross. So no one has been able to figure out who that lady was and what her connection was. And her painting was painted at the same time as all of the other Ross family members. That's just the mystery. Nobody knows. Well, I guess John Ross knew, but. Okay, Raven. This is another portrait that he did, that John Mick Stanley did. And the Gilcrease Museum says that the artist is unknown. However, the Smithsonian says that it's very likely John Mick Stanley. Stanley's notes, and he wrote a description of a lot of his paintings, and he says that he painted George Lowry, assistant chief to John Ross, at a council in Tahlequah about wampum. Now, I don't know, he's holding beads. I don't know if that was the wampum he was talking about, or if this and this were the wampum that he had. But because of that, I would say that the Smithsonian is right, that John Mick Stanley painted that portrait. But, okay, not ours. But if he's holding wampum, it makes sense to me. John Mick Stanley went to a council in Tahlequah, and he painted this, which is still in existence. He painted visitors that were there at the council, this gentleman here, and a couple of these gentlemen here. There's probably more in the crowd. But because John Mick Stanley painted this council house in Tahlequah, when red clay was being recreated, they used this as a blueprint. And they made the council house at red clay look just like this one, except it's small. Okay, ready? That's what it looks like today. And you can see how similar it was. The first time I ever saw this, and this wasn't there then, I thought, how could you get a whole bunch of people in there? It's too little. I didn't know that they had built it from looking at that painting. And the other buildings our, so the red clay grounds were sold in 1838 to private landowners, and the records show that the acres went for $7 an acre, and then it went for a penny an acre. So for a penny, for 50 cents, you could buy 50 acres at Red Clay in 1838. But in the 1950s, a woman by the name of Polly Rice Martinez, she started a movement that formed the Cherokee Red Clay Association. And a gentleman by the name of James Horn of Cleveland, Tennessee, bought 150 acres for the association to develop a park or a historical area. And he wrote a book about Red Clay. And they worked for a long time to get the financial support to preserve Red Clay. And in 1970, the Bradford County Quarterly Court, I don't know what a quarterly report is, a court that convenes every 3 months, I guess. They purchased Horn's property, and they plan to develop the area into a recreation and tourist destination. In 1974, the Red Clay Council grounds was entered on the National Register of Historic Places, and the state of Tennessee bought more land surrounding the council grounds. In 1976, to celebrate the bicentennial of the United States, they had the dedication of Red Clay. And representatives of the Eastern Band and the Cherokee Nation attended. And of course, I read my article in North Carolina. The representative from Cherokee Nation was Harry Snell. This was 1979. They opened up to the public the Red Clay, and it was 20 years after Horn's book was published. Okay, so that's what it looks like today, except there's a nice visitor center there and a little museum. And this is there. Okay. This is what the park personnel say, and I don't disagree with it. I've only heard it from them. After the last council meeting happened at Red Clay in 1837, the fire keeper took the embers from the campfire. They were split into 4 pots, and they were carried with the Cherokee along the Trail of Tears. Now, our story, passed down for generations, saying that someone received a vision that all of the sacred things, including fire, was to go west because something horrible was going to happen. And the old settlers took the sacred things and the fire. A little different than what the park says. In 1951, 2 men, Noah Powell and Tarzan Thompson, and 2 others from Cherokee, traveled to Tahlequah, and they took a metal bait bucket, which I left in North Carolina, I didn't bring with me, but a bait bucket is perfect for minnows and lizards and carrying hot coals. Because when I first heard that, I thought, how in the world did they carry that back in a car or a truck? How did they keep it going? Well, they put it down in that metal bucket that's got a little round lid to it. It's real small, and it's got air holes all on the inside of it. So they, every once in a while, they'd open it up and they'd blow on it and feed that little coal, and they kept it going until they got back to Cherokee. So when they got back, they carried the light poles and they lit the eternal flame at the unto. You see it slid, and it remained there for years and years, fed by propane. And And then in 1984, the Eastern Band and the Cherokee Nation met at Red Clay for the first time since removal. I guess I should say it's 1937. And 7 Cherokee men ran for the flame lift, the eternal flame, at North Carolina. There's these hills on torches that had those little green cocaine tanks set down in an eagle claw that was caught by wood. And they ran from Cherokee to Red Clay, and they ran in the flame at the beginning. And then in 2009, Chiefs Chad Smith and Michelle Hicks with other runners lit the internal flame again between their review. But that day in 1984, a friend of mine had taken some pictures and sent them to me years later, and I gave them to the museum. And they said, do you want us to make a copy for you? And I thought, I'll never use that again. I said, no. But since then, go ahead, Rick. I've been able to get some of them back up to the return flame. So this is the old one that was up at the drama, and the flame was like right in here. And then when they redid the theater, they moved it over here. So it's kind of going in the middle and it's and being closed. And then this is the one that's at Red Clay, and it's on propane, so supposedly it goes out. And there's a nice marker that explains what it is. Okay, good. So on one of the markers at Red Clay, it shows these pictures of 2 of the guys getting the torch lit. It kind of looks like the whole thing is on fire. In this picture, I think the newspaper should be. And then you can see the eagle claw here with a runner that's running, and 2 of the guys running somewhere between Cherokee and Red Clay. Okay, Reagan. They say about 20,000 people, about 4,000 Cherokees came to Red Clay to witness that first reunion. Park rangers say that it was about 5,000 Cherokees. And Chief Robert Longyear was going to put in a resolution to the Joint Council asking that Red Clay be returned to the Cherokees. But he pulled the resolution when he saw what good condition park maintenance people had kept Red Clay and what a good job they were doing. And then Chief Ross Swimmer said that we probably couldn't afford to keep it up anyway, or something like that in the interview. So, okay, great. So this is a better picture of the blue hole, the blue area here. It got so much attention that the park personnel put a fence around the whole thing. And the only way that you can get close to the spring is if you have an enrollment card from United Indigo Band, Cherokee Nation, or Eastern Band. So if you ever go, make sure that you take that and take an empty container so that you can take some of that. It looks like if you filled up a glass jar with that water, you'd get leaves and dirt and all kinds of stuff in it. But it's not. It's 100% pure. There's nothing in that water but pure water. It's just banks around it. So, okay, when our men go and play stickball at Red Clay like they will this weekend, they'll go to the spring afterwards on but I don't show them doing that. But our riders from Oklahoma and North Carolina, they actually start at New Echota and they ride to Red Clay on the first day. And then they begin the loose payment of that 52 degree. This is my niece. She was a writer in 2019. And I know that lady there's one of our doctors for the hospital. And I think I recognize this gentleman, but I can't really tell from the others on. You might recognize some of them. And the reunion, it occurred to me that I didn't see any reference to the United Food Bank participating in any of the reunions. And I don't know if they chose not to participate or if they weren't asked to participate. And I hope that they were asked. Because this area belongs to all charities. I don't know where they live or what their membership affiliation is. So if you ever get a chance to go, it's really well kept. The museum is small but very nice. And they have different activities during the year as well. Okay, Rita, I think that's it. Yep. Okay. So we talked about gold, we talked about possums, we talked about red clay and the Kilpatricks. Had anybody ever heard about the Kilpatricks before tonight? I just think they're remarkable. They're just so artistic and gifted in what they preserved. And why in the world it's not taught in our schools in this country, I don't know. I don't know. Definitely should be. Anyone have any questions? Yes, no.
Is the red clay area anywhere near the like Dragon Canoe Center? Of the Chickamauga?
No, the Chickamaugas is closer to Chattanooga, and Red Clay is by Cleveland. Would you say an hour and a half drive, Cleveland? Yeah, about an hour and a half away. It is very close to Benton, Tennessee, where the Nancy Ford gravesite and her son is.
Right. I was just trying to get it in my mind.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, once you get to Cleveland and you go out in the country, and I can't remember if you get service there or not, but it's really pretty. The whole valley is beautiful. I thought you were gonna say, when are you ever gonna get a presentation that just pops up and shows? I don't know. I appreciate you and Raven trying so hard.
Do you think the Richland men, Cherokee, and Eastern men have a better relationship with them than 20 years ago?
Personally, from elected officials to elected officials, I don't know. I know that joint council was a product of the one that was held in 1984. And last year, Cherokee Nation Chief Hoskins sent word that they were not going to participate in. And that shocked people like me. I can't. I just don't understand why.
He himself or
He himself sent word to the Eastern Band. I think we were supposed to be the hosts. And, you know, they were rotated that they would not be participating. And our chief said, whatever the reason, we will continue to work with both. So, and to me, it's like, once they're out of the room, it's just people like us, who there's no difference. There's, I call them big people and little people, and when the little people get together, then there's nothing there but friendship and welcome and good fellowship.
The politics and people like us, it's all.
So,
I think you can get any kind of better as well. Not song.
they have their reasons, I guess. I don't understand them, but I don't hear them say much about exactly why, but I don't understand. You're right. Politics and us little people, I don't know what to say.
I had some of the people that were very good calls, but I started to get they were asking that the people that used to be made that the interested they won't have it. Interested or somebody that you know would be interested.
I think so. I think there's a large number of people that are really eager to know Cherokee history and would welcome the chance, I think, to interact with them and then everyone else involved. I figured Jack Baker would want to be involved because he is the one that would push that journal translation project.